Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This number you and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest heart, the blackest mind, the blackest man on social media, signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button. Because the message is more important than the messenger. I said that I was listening to SWP's take on somebody else's live stream, and I would mention the name of the other person's live stream, or I would mention the name of the other owner to give credit, of course. But just in case he doesn't even want me mentioning his name, I'm not going to do it. So anyway, a valid point has been raised by both sides, and that is that we're conditioned. That's one thing all of us could probably admit to. We've been psychologically conditioned. And most people around the world are. But anyway, the major point here is that SWP made an observation. He's made it multiple times, and that is that when light-skinned women are approached by dark-skinned men, it's with more thirst than what a light-skinned man will show. And that when light-skinned men approach light-skinned women, it's not with a whole lot of thirst. And so, light-skinned women, they're going to, of course, cape for dark-skinned men that approach them with more thirst. I did not say that this observation was true or not. One thing I did say was that, well, I know that with women in general, especially attractive women, they don't like it when you approach them with thirst because it bothers them so much that they can actually detect or mistake other things for thirst. In other words, the things that women want the least, attractive women see everywhere, even where they're not. That's a rule you can pretty much live by, at least in the West. I did make a mention of this. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You don't really seem interested by, oh, well, you seem a little bit too interested, so bye. Or you seem a little bit too interested. Hold on, let's see what I can use you for. That's what it's like. So anyway, I listened to more, and I'm about halfway through the actual live stream itself. Shout out to SWP. Your observation was spot on. And shout out to you for making it plain that I didn't have anything to do with this role between you and Anon. At this point, if he insists on even so much as name calling, then that means that his grudge is with me independently of you, to be honest. And I'm actually used to that when I'm dealing with my own kind, regardless of shade. But I'm used to that. Doesn't mean I'm going to just tolerate it, but I'll still be fair. When he makes a valid point, I'll say, you know what, this point's valid. And that's only because we're tackling the same issue. So anyway, I also want to give a shout out to Brady Hartsfield, and a shout out to Select the Jaw. Yeah. Shout out to Dwight Hayes as well. And shout out to Abdullah bin Bobby. Shout out also to Brother Anthony Williams in the Bahamas. Mr. Williams, I would actually welcome any input you can give on colorism in the Bahamas. How similar it is to in the United States, how different it is. Anyway, back to this. So SWP made the observation, and after listening to the live stream itself, not only through SWP's channel and that take, but after listening to it, the actual live stream on the channel by the channel owner, I'm now at about 2 hours and 10 minutes in. I got more to listen to, but I can tell you now, it's already been confirmed. SWP's observation has already been confirmed by the people that were on there. There were those who agreed, but those who disagreed as well. If somebody sees something, if more than one that are not in the same region can point to the same observation, that means they have observed the same pattern more than likely. That's what I got to go by now. I got to weigh the evidence. Could be proven wrong later. Maybe stats will come up with how we've misconceived the whole thing or misperceived it. But until stats and studies come out, I got to go with this. And right now, his observation has been confirmed, and I've already seen mine with my own eyes. So what does that mean? It means exactly what I said in my last one. I listen to his observation often expressed. More tropical looking brothers approach and relate to light skinned women with more intensity, more sincerity, more thirst, more simping, more self abasement. I thought when I first heard it, well, I don't get to hear successful approaches men make, so I don't know if all that is true or not at all. I've seen some successful approaches, made some, but I don't hear others, except on maybe rare occasions. And usually I wasn't supposed to hear them. And even then, when I heard them, it was like there was nothing special. Actually, this is the same reason for which I would get not only declined, but shot down if I wasn't careful, or if I was careful. Then I listened to these two. I listened to the live streams through these two channels. 2 hours and 10 minutes in right now. And to the actual channel owner that had the live stream, I'd give him credit by name. But, honestly, it seems like he wouldn't even want me to say his name. He may say some slick crap to me now, even if I don't. I could give him credit for a valid point, he'll still clap. So I'll just assume he's happy not being mentioned by name. But SWP doesn't mind it. And that's okay. So anyway, some of them on the panel said exactly what SWB said. And it was both light-skinned men and light-skinned women that said that light-skinned men don't approach, and if they do, it's not the same. The women were trying to say, well, y'all don't approach, you don't come with the same aggression. The men were saying, actually, we don't approach because we don't get the same results. And I know the second one is true. See, I said in my own observation in the last video that on the occasion that you do have some paler men that make these approaches to paler women, that if they approach the way that you would think a more tropical looking brother would approach, or the way that they have been observed making these approaches, including confirmed by the women themselves, more aggressive. That aggression coming from a light-skinned dude is just thirst and it's desperation, and that's it. And we know how that goes over. So now, by the ones about whom SWP made the observation, they've confirmed it. And I've already seen what I told you, because I wouldn't have told you otherwise. So what it comes down to is our more tropical, equatorial looking brothers, our more melanated brothers are allowed to make more aggressive and persistent approaches. It is tolerated differently. If I do that, it is desperation. Even if I don't, and frankly, I'm happily married, so I'm not doing it. But the point I'm making is that for somebody else out there, that same thing is not going to go over well. Ms. Philosophy said herself in that live stream, I'm only bringing her name up to quote her. I'm not dragging her. I'm just bringing her name up to quote her. She said herself, the colorism stems from women who felt that lighter-skinned women were a possibility of, and I quote, we can't get fed, we can't get housed, and we can't reproduce, close quote. This was about being chosen for resources, not for love. This is an argument. Now, she was pretty much paraphrasing others' arguments. That's why I'm not dragging her. She doesn't need to be dragged for paraphrasing someone else, but this is about being chosen for resources. This is an argument by the same women in the West who say they have their own and don't need men for these resources. You see why I attack colorism for a different reason now, audience? If it's just about black women's ability to be less feminine and bigger and still get a bag, and all of this in a Western context of gender equality, then it's about something they said isn't important already. It's about men. And it's also about something else for which they said they don't need men, and that is resources. Let me explain something. Mitchell Mack was a good litmus test for me in that one too. And I'm not dragging him. I'm just quoting him. I have a different opinion, but right now I'm just quoting him to illustrate the point, to back it up, because I should back up my points when I make them, especially since I'm giving you an observation you all may not have seen. Mitchell Mack said that it's hard to cape for women who don't really rock with you. He used the F word. And that a man should overlook some things and protect and provide. I agree. It is hard to cape for women that don't really rock with you. That's what I was trying to tell LSM, and she went off. But he said a man should overlook some things and protect and provide. And that's where, on behalf of other men, I'm going to say something else. I'm going to disagree. On behalf of other black men, any shade, especially the ones who are thinking, that don't meet negative stereotypes, it's not our job to overlook a damn thing that won't be overlooked in us or from us. See, Lion of MGTOW was on to something this morning, my time. Maybe it was probably late in the evening your time. He was on to something. He said if men had the same standards for women in the West women have for men, humanity would have stopped. Mating would stop. Men, raise your standards, especially if you're in the West. One of the reasons I said that Islam is the solution is because the men and the women are supposed to have standards. Men are supposed to have standards. So men, apply this principle, raise your standards, especially if you're in the West. You're not required to make it easy for them while they make it rough on you. You're not required to sit up and jump through the hoops and then not pull out any hoops of your own for them to jump through. If you're going to lower your standards, do it in an environment in which you're judged by lower standards at least. And that's if you even want to be in that environment. You may not want to, but be fair. And in any Western context, be it in a non-black man's camp or in SWB's camp, there's this assumption that men owe it to women to make the approach. The problem is that in any Western context, that's also where you hear feminism. Now, how it is that she gets to be special and equal at the same time, I can't figure out to save my life. And if anything, that's actually taking her right away from her, because as far as I'm concerned, they have a right to make the approach. They don't have, and to not be shot down rudely for it, if they can respect that in other men. There's nothing wrong when they do it. But of course, they'll say, oh, I shouldn't have to. And okay, that's why I'm a jerk. Because I have to hear similar to what you said, SWP. I tend to avoid name calling, but I do become a jerk because I have to listen to this intellectual dishonesty from a society. And I really don't think that we're required to be that patient. I'm going to say to the Western ladies the same thing I say to my students. Western ladies of all shades. Black or white, dark or light. I told my students, we teachers from real universities are not required to be stupid so you can be sneaky. And we're not required to be patient so that you can be stupid either. We're required to be patient while you practice and improve yourself. Now, I'm going to say this too. Colorism means that internationally the most oppressive group of people are on top. Internationally, it does mean that. And that's going to be the white folk. But in the USA, black folks who are the most deserving of holding power in the U.S. and resources, specifically because we won't oppress other races for being other races, are divided against each other instead of focusing on this. Mitchell Mack said the same thing on there, that the black community's division over color is a distraction from us working to build a safety net against white supremacy and starting our own development. And he was well received when he said it. I wasn't. I was told off and told to leave the channel. And since then, I've been insulted once with profanity and then once with the moniker hypocrite, because it's something I not only didn't do, but also didn't know about. It's about one who I appreciated for going to bat for my phenotype to be treated fairly in the community. That is a valid issue, and that is a good reason to address colorism, and that's why I do it. In the USA, when light-skinned folks are fought against or even verbally treated differently by the same person than how that same person would treat a darker person, that's also colorism in my dictionary. When I'm talking about it in the USA, I'm going to talk about it with a bi-directional definition. Internationally, maybe not. But in the USA, in Black America, that's how I'm going to talk about it. Because even if it is subconscious on the part of the practitioner, it's colorism. And these subconscious backlashes against the perception of light-skin privilege outweigh any privilege, real or perceived. Trust me on that. I'm going to be honest with him about, I'm going to give him concede even to my opposition that particular point. Blackistan is upped fuck. And Blackistan may not be expelling us per se. I don't perceive that. But Blackistan makes sure that everybody pays any phenotype, even based on things like ear size. And while this is oftentimes worse when we're young, the fact is it's during the formative years, so the damage is done for a lot of people. And I was glad to hear him admit that a lot of this comes from things that happen in youth, but the damage is still done. That's what I've been saying. If someone argues with me and is quick to issue a physical challenge, but doesn't do this to most of the black folk, that's colorism. And I'm not required to fight him fairly. It's not a fair fight until I win. If I pick up a bat, that's fine. He pulls out a weapon, he's a coward, rat, bastard, cheater. That's what it is, because I don't start this stuff. Same in reverse. If I do the same thing and differentiate treatment based on someone having either shade, mine or Morris chestnuts, I'm guilty of the same thing. We can argue if this definition applies abroad, but in the States, that's how I'm using it straight up. I know y'all ain't gonna like it. I think even SWP, who I find to generally be intellectually honest, but then again, I haven't gone far back through his archives yet. Generally, I find the same thing. See, as old as racialized slavery is in the United States, there's been a backlash against light-skinned black folks to offset whatever privilege they were perceived to have or actually get. And the country ain't been easy on dark-skinned folk either, because black folks have been catching it. And likewise, the community has internalized this, and everybody gets it. Everyone. And if you're in the middle, you get it about other things. And the non and light-skinned motivation brought receipts to back that up, just like SWP brought receipts to back up the extent of white supremacy and its legacy. And I know my father dealt with this colorism growing up in his hometown, but he wasn't sure what it was at that time. And he dealt with it from people who don't hate him. And some classmates just simply weren't afraid of him, like they weren't afraid of me, and would get out of pocket, and we'd have to fight more than other guys in these areas, in the schools and in the neighborhoods. And we weren't even aware of why they weren't afraid of us. So anyway, my point is that since we now have confirmation, I update what I said in my last video. Light-skinned brothers, you ain't what many light-skinned women want, at least not openly. And see, in person, you guys have various experiences based on region and based on your own height, too. Your own muscle mass. But you've heard that you're worn in style, like you're a purse or something that she gets to wear. The funny thing is, there are women that do prefer you. Not me. I'm taken. I don't want to hear it. But for you, those of you that are not taken, there are those that prefer you, but they're online, and that's not the same. If they're online, then that means exactly what I knew from 2001 when my colleague explained it to me. They're in real life too. They're in your city. That means they're in hiding. That same independent, neck-rolling, strong woman that doesn't care what other women say is in hiding in person, but is ready to admit her interest in you on an FB page. Or she'll admit it to you in whispers, justified by, I'm married, I can't tell nobody. Because then that's the perfect excuse to keep it a secret. Giving her access to, or an arrangement by which she can secretly get what she wants. Because in actuality, you may be her type. But because it has to be that, you got to take less. Which is exactly what a lot of dark-skinned black women are saying they've had to do. Get that passport and bounce. If you can't, then I'd recommend fasting to kill your libido and live a monk lifestyle, because you aren't going to be treated equally. And being singled out for mistreatment is unacceptable. I'm talking beyond just their right to politely decline. I'm talking worse than that. You don't have to take that. Because you're not even going to get that polite declination in many cases, as Selector Job pointed out. He's seeing it on Facebook. He says, every time a man's exposed, he's pale. I mean, he's not that well melanated. Every time. He's like, how come the men that these women are exposing for sliding into their DMs don't represent the whole spectrum? Why is that? Because only one type can be embarrassing. So to offset the embarrassment, they go ahead and embarrass him. If he's well melanated, they feel like keeping it a secret, or it's okay he slid in because she's going to slide right back in his. He brought up that point. You're going to get declined or used or shown interest online and in long distance relationships, but never the same treatment as another brother with more melanin, unless he's the opposite of the hyper macho stereotype attributed to black men, which would make her see him as looking more like you in her eyes anyway. So I'm gonna close by saying this. To Western black women of all shades, I'm dealing with this from the standpoint, I'm attacking the issue of colorism from the standpoint that you have the right to not be attacked, beaten, or blamed for what you didn't do, because these are things that God himself made wrong. In our faith, when God created the creation, he said, I forbid oppression upon myself, and I forbid it for my creation. Meaning he forbade himself from oppressing even his creation, even though he owns it, including us. And that's the reason that I oppose this in either direction. But you do not have the right to argue over us men and argue over that which you would not forgive us for arguing. If it's not your job to validate any man, as one lady said on the panel, then it's not our job to validate you. But she said, it's not my job to validate the man. That's his job. That's what she said. I beg to differ, ma'am. And that's one of the dumbest statements I've heard anyone make. And this is what is driving Western men away from you, regardless of your shade, period. If you don't want My single peers objectifying you sexually or financially, then don't objectify them, especially financially and not sexually. Either colorism is more serious than just which one of you we pick first when we have a bag, or it's not serious enough to address at all. Or you can drop all the feminism in women's lib and then admit that it has to be that serious, even if it's only about which one of you we pick when we have a bag because you don't have another way to get a bag. Make up your mind. But the black men of all shades in the West, although right now it seems to be especially lighter skinned brothers gonna need this, passports and visas. That's what you need. And until you can bounce with that passport, visa, and some skills or some savings to start something, until that day you can do it, start acting more entitled, not less. I hope this has been of benefit. And I hope that one day it's not going to be necessary anymore. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual male power to whichever man she's trying to gaslight or use, specifically because she don't like it.